right, you're welcome back. And the conversation right now, it's about the rule of law, accountability, probity, and doing things properly, which is a culture in which many Nigerians, many, especially leaders, are not too comfortable or are not too used to. When you talk about accountability, probity, and sometimes you expect people at the top echelons of things at different capacities to be the one to be at the forefront of championing these causes, especially doing things rightly and obeying the law. But occasionally, sometimes, even our antecedent shows we have some things, maybe one or two things to learn from having that culture, to know that whenever you're put in a place, you are there, you are holding in trust, responsibilities and the trust of the people who are put you there, who you are meant to serve. And these are the issues. 2 days ago, precisely on Wednesday, a situation ensued when operatives of the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, besieged the home of a former Kogi State Governor, Yahaya Bello, to have him, picked up to answer questions. And we learned that was done after several invitations have been extended to him, and he hasn't really, obliged the men of the EFCC. And they were at his place, and, drama ensued. Possibly they were not given, they were not able to enter the house and, pick him up. And there were people chanting, singing, trying to, obstruct the will of justice or what they were meant to do in that particular place. Then another bizarre situation happened. His successor, Governor Ododo, came. That's the governor of Kogi, the current governor, came into the fore, in a commando version, drove through the barricade, entered the house, and we learned whisked him away. That's the man that the EFCC was looking for, and he's still looking for, by the way. And many persons are saying, what is going on here? Should that have even happened in the first place? If our producers can put up that particular video, should that have really happened? You have been invited, a two-term governor, you served 8 years, you served your people, and now you are being, called to question to come and answer, some figures, over 80 billion naira that, due to money laundering or misappropriation of funds. Just come and say your own side of the story, and that drama ensued. We learned the EFCC have, they have a warrant of arrest on him, and then his lawyers, that's Yahaya Bello lawyers, are saying, we have a court order that is telling you to stand down, don't probe him, don't come for him, and you are not obeying court injunctions. Many persons are wondering, what are we battling with? How does this position us in the eyes of the global, people? To make a sense of that and other matters that have risen from that, we have been joined this morning by a legal practitioner and, of course, a university lecturer. He joins us virtually this morning. Dr. Misbau Lateef, thank you for joining us.
Inviting me. Good morning to your viewers as well, and Nigerians.
All right. And very quickly, because we have a very long way to go, Doctor, what was your initial reaction when you saw that particular situation? Because it wasn't just a 30-minute or a 1-hour situation. It spanned hours. And you were looking, observing that situation at Wuse in Abuja on Wednesday. What went through your mind? And how will you describe it?
Well, for me, it was quite, disturbing and embarrassing, and I would say a national embarrassment. You use the words accountability earlier in your introduction, and then I guess I can also add responsibility. So what we saw from that incident was pure, I would say, act of irresponsibility and lack of accountability on the part of our political elite. That drama, which is embarrassing, shouldn't have happened. And shouldn't have happened because Mr. Yahaya Bello, the ex-governor of Kogi State, somebody who has risen as far as becoming a two-term governor of a state in Nigeria, who is also supposedly someone close to the president. We saw their, I would say, alliance or maybe dalliance, if you like, during the campaign activities and all of that. So one would have expected, a much more decent, I would say, attitude or response or leadership from Mr. Yahaya Bello. Unfortunately, he didn't do that. Unfortunately, he decided to put up a show which I think has ended up embarrassing him even the more. And unfortunately, he has also, in a way, put the country under unnecessary, I would say, embarrassment. And I want to say that for me, really, contrary to what some people have said, I want to really commend the way the EFCC, undo that particular scenario. Different EFCC leadership, they come with different styles and all of that. I recall what happened to a former governor of Imo State, Mr. Rocha Sokorocha, when the EFCC literally broke the door, and he swamped on his family and all of that. Many people condemned that incident at that time, and I also did. So I'm happy at this particular time that the EFCC leadership did not follow that kind of Gestapo or commando style, of breaking in and forcing their way through and all. Imagine if that had occurred and then you had, the same, I would say, institution of the same government, the EFCC on the one hand, and then the security detail attached to Mr. Yahaya Bello, and even I'm coming to Mr. Ododo shortly.
Yeah.
So for me, really, I think we should actually commend the EFCC for not being forceful enough, as many would have expected, but that could have probably led to fatalities or even much more embarrassment that we have seen. But again, I think I'll put all of this on Mr. Yahaya Bello, who, as I said earlier, has ended up embarrassing himself. And now to add assault to injury, the sitting governor of Kogi State, Mr. Ododo, I learned also came in and, like, to use your word, in a commando style, and whisked him away. That was pure criminality. That was act of irresponsibility. I mean, that's something that a sitting governor, not even someone who has a sense of decency and respect for the rule of law of the country, should never have done. Unfortunately, what Mr. Ododo has done in that context is to abuse his constitutional privilege of immunity under Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution, because otherwise, I mean, he shouldn't have gotten away with that crime. It was a broad day criminality that a governor should never, but of course, this is Nigeria. So as I said, it was quite shocking, quite embarrassing. What Mr. Yahaya Bello ought to have done was to have presented himself before the EFCC voluntarily, even if, as a claim, there is a subsisting court order barring the EFCC from prosecuting and all of that. You don't confront illegality with another illegality. If the EFCC was wrong, as he claimed, I don't really think so. The best place to confront the EFCC was the court. Or it could have just gone before the same court where it's still been, or where it's planned to be arraigned, and then put those facts before the court. And even if that will not work, I mean, typically, these people, they get bail when they are arraigned like that. So it's not as if inviting him by the EFCC or going before the EFCC, is going through or to hell. So whatever he's hiding, I think he has just worsened his case. He has ended, that is Mr. Yahaya Bello now, he has embarrassed himself, and I think it deserves all the splashes or whatever it is that he is going through now. It deserves, and even deserve more. When people stand up against the law or when they obstruct the course of justice, the law should also be applied on them. And I think I want to commend again the EFCC for the, I would say, gentle manner which is lawful. You know, they have gone about this so far. I learned they have declared him wanted. I learned he has been put, I mean, a high alert has been put on his head. I mean, for other security agencies to ensure that he doesn't escape from the country. I hope they will be able to carry that through, and I hope they will get it. You see, people who indulge in this kind of criminality, they can only hide for a moment. They can't run forever. Even Messiah, Odudo himself, he will cease being governor one day, whether after 4 years or 8 years or whatever the case. I'm sure he will also come to his own fate one day. But they do this to embarrass the country, to embarrass themselves.
All right.
To in a way soil, you know, the position, the country, you know, they have had the privilege to occupy.
All right, Dr. Misbau, thank you for that elaborate explanation. But then let's come to the Court of Justice, which some people actually think contributed to this issue on ground. We had two conflicting court orders, one from the Federal High Court in Abuja, permitting the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to arrest the former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello, and we had a State High Court restraining the EFCC from arresting the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. And people are asking, you know, why is there no handshake between this court of law? Why is it that politicians go to courts to just shop for judgments like they go to a mall to buy, groceries? I'd like you to react to that, because people think the court of law, this is not the first time that Nigerians and even people all over the world are calling out the judiciary system for contributing to the lawlessness in our polity. So I'd like you to react to that.
All right, thank you so much. And I really like your choice of words. When you say shopping or shop, that is literally what these people do. And that, unfortunately, is another way, by which our irresponsible, and I'm not really sorry to say that, permit me, our irresponsible political elite, because you see, I use the word irresponsible because you will find out that the most people who break the laws of Nigeria or who drag the law in the mud are not the ordinary guys or folks on the streets. They are the elite, so they are the ones who tend to abuse the privilege the country has bestowed upon them. So it was really, in the first place, this attitude of our politicians to abuse their privilege, manipulate the judiciary. And this is where, when people say the problem with Nigeria or the trouble with Nigeria, as Achebe of blessed memory put it, is multifaceted, or hydra-headed. You see, when you are dealing with one, symptoms, another one is brewing, or you have multiple symptoms brewing at the same time. So, the judiciary is also a part of that complex mix, I would say, of corruption in Nigeria. And unfortunately, some of our judges, they still allow themselves to be used for this kind of irresponsible and nefarious activities. So in the first place, and that's where I'm coming to now, the order from the High Court, and this is how this thing play out. They have a method to doing this. Okay. There's a method. The method basically is that you will see that a governor will want to exercise, their authority, and I would say abusive authority within their sphere of authority, within their state. So they usually go to the High Court of the state, and we saw that in Kano State recently, and we saw if somebody did something in Kano, another person went to Federal High Court. So what they tend to do, which is the method, is that some people exercise their own power over the state High Court, where they have more power, and some other people at the federal level will also go to the Federal High Court. So they end up, at the end of the day, making our court to give conflicting orders. Now, who do I blame for this? I would not really want to blame the politician, irresponsible politician, as much as I would like to blame the unscrupulous judges. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. So we still have some bad judges, some bad egg in the judiciary who allow themselves to be used for irresponsible political, I would say, things like this. So I want to say with all sense of authority, the order of the High Court of Kogi State should never have happened in the first place. You see, you may rush to a court of law asking the courts, and the Constitution guaranteed this, Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution on Fundamental Human Rights. You may rush to a court to prevent an agency of government, let's say, from detaining you unlawfully, or beyond the time specified by law, or from punishing you from doing something. But you don't go to a court of law that an agency of government should not be allowed to do their work. If the EFCC want to invite you, or even the police or DSS or whatever, okay, you should present yourself before them. So even if I'm a judge and a party comes before me and the prayer is that, please stop this agency from inviting me or from interrogating me, I think that is something that a judge ordinarily should not, find, I would say, the presence of mind to condone. But unfortunately, we see some judges who also, connive with politicians to, engage in this clearly irresponsible. So that order should never have happened, but then it happened. Now, when it happens like that by law, well, another of course, whether it was rightly obtained or wrongly obtained, has to be complied with. Now, you have a conflicting one from the Federal High Court. Which one should the EFCC follow?
Exactly.
Well, by law, again, the EFCC is at liberty to choose either of them. Now, there are conflicting orders. The EFCC can say, well, there is an order, which is the latter one in time, which says we can arrest him. It gives us a warrant of arrest, so we want to execute it. Okay? But the judges should watch it. The NJC need to really cleanse our judicial system in a manner that judges will, avoid putting the courts and the system in this kind of embarrassment. A court should not say that an agency cannot invite someone. A court should not say that. You can say
Doctor,
don't detain him. You can say release him.
Okay.
You can say don't punish him. You can say don't abuse his rights. But you don't say don't investigate him, don't interview him, don't invite him, and you make it permanent. That is irresponsible. Irresponsible.
All right, Doctor, talking about the NJC, the National Judicial Council, I'd like to say, how do they actually get to work, spring to action in this kind of case, where we have conflicting court orders? How is it that the NJC can actually rein in judicial officers that they consider one that have gone into some kind of misconduct, or judicial officer that have erred in their duties as judges? How does the NJC ensure that it cleans and also upholds the sanctity of the judicial system in Nigeria?
Okay, let me say this. Sometimes, we have to be very clear, and I want to make this clear. Judicial misconduct, is not exactly the same thing as error. Some judges, maybe for lack of sufficient knowledge, and as an irony, they may actually fall into error of giving an order they were not supposed to give. In that case, a judge may not have actually been compromised. It could be that the judge was just maybe reckless, or is not really properly abreast of the law. So whatever it is, anyway, to activate the disciplinary measure of the NJC, there has to be a petition written by whoever to that body, and the body will normally investigate that petition. And if they find merits in it, for example, if it can be shown that a judge was reckless, it may not have actually been compromised. But if a judge was reckless, say, for example, an elementary provision of the law, a judge turns it upside down, that is also irresponsible, and that is reckless. So even if the judge has not been given any money or has not been compromised, that failure on its own, is also within the jurisdiction of the NJC. So but the point is, somebody has to petition the NJC, and then they will investigate, and if the judge is found wanting, they will naturally sanction the judge. And I can tell you, despite what I've said earlier, there are instances where the NJC has wielded the big stick, against judges who behave in manners that are not exactly consistent with the law. So it's but if there is no petition from anywhere, unfortunately, the NJC will just, pretend as if, because as judges, or as a panel, they may only, they are not usually heard. You know, they are generally seen. We know the NJC exists, but they don't talk on their own. You have to move them. You have to activate their process, you know, to get them to work on complaints.
All right, just before Femi comes up, I have 2 questions. First is, I'd like you to speak on the handshake between security agencies, because on that particular day, the EFCC operatives actually stood in front of the Wuse residence of the former governor for hours, not just for hours. It was from in the morning till late in the night. And we heard, or we learned that, you know, the former governor was being protected by some armed men called special forces and also the police. So one would naturally have thought that probably the EFCC leadership would have reached out to the leadership of the police to ensure that their men stand down so they can actually arrest the former governor as pertaining to the fact that they have a warrant of arrest from the court of law. So I need you to speak on the handshake between security agencies, because we've seen over time where we've had feud between security agencies in Nigeria. In fact, there was a time, the Ohiolei issue, where we had the NCS and the police fighting, over who to take custody of the former CBN governor.
Well, I think I agree with you. I mean, the way you have really surmised this, the point is that, one of the challenges with our security administration system, if I can put it that way, is that, like Riley said, there does not seem to be a proper handshake, or I would say collaboration or coordination among these services. And this is why we tend to see some of these conflicts, that is not, supposed to occur in the first place. I mean, many of us, I don't know if you get to see movies, well, I guess many people actually watch movies. We've seen American movies where you will see, FBI officials or even a police officer, come to a crime scene, and he will just walk up to whoever is there, introduce himself. Oh, I'm from FBI. We are taking over this case. And you see the other agency, they will stand down.
Yeah.
This is why, because, the area of duties of each of these agencies have been clearly defined. But and because also officers in those other climes, they are more responsible and they hold their, I would say, loyalty to the laws of the land. In Nigeria, unfortunately, the security details we have around our politician or elite, they tend to think their loyalty is to that official and not to the law of the land. So ideally, when EFCC visit any premises, one would expect them ordinarily that, well, they will have done, I would say, internal collaborative sharing of intelligence, with other agencies, so that they know beforehand that the EFCC will be coming to see so and so. And when they get there, all the other officials protecting this elite, all they need to do is to verify that people who have come forward to make arrests or do anything, they are legitimate people from the same government. And once they are able to establish that, as we do see in American movies, as I said earlier, they should not normally back off or back down, as the case may be. Well, in this case, again, people don't tend to appreciate, the role that the law or the burden or duty that the law has placed on their shoulder. So they tend to think their duty is to protect that person and not uphold the law of the land. So I think this is one area where the current government, we need to really work hard to ensure what we call interagency, smooth relationship, sharing, comparison of intelligence, collaborative efforts, so that, for example, now, the EFCC has declared Mr. Yahaya Bello wanted. And I learned the police has also withdrawn its police details. The question is that, should they have been looking for him in the first place? The people protecting him, his orderlies, are people from the Nigerian police force. Shouldn't the police ordinarily have access to this person and then to be able to track where Yahaya Bello or whoever is at any point in time? So these are the kind of areas where I think our security agencies, they need to do more, for cohesion, coherence, and I would say symphony, in their activities so that the country can be better run, than we see now. But it's quite embarrassing that you will see police officers, deploy from the same police institution, but then they happen to be on different sides, at a particular time, then confronting themselves. That should ordinarily not happen. But unfortunately, well, this is where we are. So I think going forward, we government need to work on that area and ensure that this agency and officers, yes, officers who stand in the way of other officers who are on a lawful duty should also be punished. When the law, when the institution begin to apply, I would say, disciplinary measure against such officers, I think those who tend to stand against other officers, will sit up and then behave themselves. So we shouldn't see these things in the first place. And it's quite embarrassing, disturbing even.
All right, in your earlier submission, you made mention that the current governor of Kogi State, Mr. Usman Ododo, actually abused his office by going ahead to whisk away the former governor of Kogi State from his residence while the EFCC was right in front of his house to arrest him. We know he has immunity. It's provided for in the Constitution. But then how do we ensure that our governors or presidents do not abuse their power? What disciplinary measures are in place or given by the Constitution to ensure, to serve as a deterrent for governors or public office holders who have immunity not to abuse their office?
Well, unfortunately, the immunity, which I think is actually desirable, I think we need an immunity clause. And if you allow me to just say briefly, one of the reasons why we have that clause in the Constitution is to prevent them from distractions. Imagine you having to arraign a governor, for crime at every now and then. People bringing up their charges and complain, and the governor or president gets to go to the police formation for interrogation every time. So, but then unfortunately, Nigeria, what we see that people abuse this power, like you rightly said. Now, is there any protection against that abuse under the law? I can't seem to find one as I speak now, because I know that this constitutional immunity, well, maybe there is actually, because the immunity only exists for the duration of their time in office. If, for example, a governor kills someone today, which is murder, unfortunately, you cannot arrest him. Unfortunately, you cannot prosecute him. You have to wait for him to complete his term, and then you can bring charges against him, because in law, time does not run against crime. Anybody can still be brought before the law for criminal prosecution, even if it is 1 million years from today. But that is for criminal charges. So now, like we see in the case of Yahaya Bello now, the EFCC couldn't do that when he was in the office. Now they are able to do it, and then he's trying to run away from justice. So the point is that, yes, this immunity is not permanent, and there will always be a time like this for the likes of Yahaya Bello and Ododo himself. People would think this temporary privilege, gives them the license to misbehave or to misbehave. There will always be a day of reckoning for them, and that is after they are done, serving their term. So hopefully the law will always catch up with them. I guess it will not be too late.
Yeah, Dr. Lateef, many things to really talk about, especially the sanctity of the courts, the judiciary, the hallowed chamber, and of course the integrity of the Nigerian state, especially in the eye of other watchers in the global community. And just like you have said, it's just bad, just to say the least, by the way, and it's discomforting to know that this is what is happening at this time. But I'd like to ask you, as a legal practitioner, as a law lecturer, now, you've talked about people, Evelyn talked about politicians shopping for orders, to tell agencies of the government not to come for them, not to probe them. But if, and I'm talking constitutional, if there is that provision in our laws that allows politicians, people to go for that order, you know, to say, don't come for me, give me some time, or I'm not ready, I should not be probed at all, in as much as there is that provision in our laws? Won't politicians keep going for it unless it is expunged? Isn't this a constitutional issue, or those orders are given at the discretion of my lord at the court? Is that the way it works?
Well, I believe every country, you know, they have their challenges. And if you permit me, just yesterday, I was discussing with someone about the flood, you know, the recent flood that we have seen in Dubai. And then we came upon discussing a cybercrime law in Dubai, which actually forbids people, you know, from posting bad news about the country, about the UAE, you know, on social media. You know, people have posted a video of the flooding and blah, blah, and all of that. You know, the law actually literally says, look, you cannot put the country in bad light. You cannot. So most countries, what they try to do is that they project, you know, their positive side, you know, the side of their country that is really alluring. I mean, that is very, very glossy, you know, and all of that. So they tend to suppress. So so there are no countries really, that's what I'm saying, you know, without some of these teething problem or internal challenges. The difference between us and them is that Nigeria, we have so much liberty, and that's what I discussed yesterday. We tend to have more human rights, even than some countries Nigerians aspire to japa to. I'm telling you this. Because in Dubai, for example, as I said earlier, Nigerians can post anything on social media. There are countries in Africa where they don't have access to Facebook. I guess you know that. I think Uganda, yes, and some other countries like that, even in Africa. So, but my point is this. It is not really the problem of the law. We have sufficient laws in Nigeria. It is a problem of the abuses and the abusers. And because we don't always apply consequences, there is really no law of Nigeria that says or that protects people from committing crime or some of these things that we see. It is just that when they commit the crime, okay, we don't tend to summon the political will to punish them. And if you permit me, this is where I think what is emerging, and I hope it is correct, I hope my reading is not wrong, from the current government is that they don't seem to want to continue, I would say that past, you know, behavior where people who are close to the government, you know, they are shielded from prosecution. Mr. Yahaya Bello was a prominent figure in the campaign of the current president. And I can't imagine that he's going through this. But I think I should commend the government for not protecting him. If they had wanted to do that, I don't think the EFCC will have had the audacity to go after him in the first place. So I hope this is actually deliberate. I hope it's just not an accident.
Yeah,
and I hope somebody's...
sorry, because of want of time, I have 2 or 3 questions for you, and time is short.
Okay.
What I was saying is that part of our constitution that allow politicians to approach the court for the kind of orders that will prevent agencies of the government from probing them, shouldn't that part be expunged totally, so that they even have nothing to lean on?
Okay, because of time, as you said, and I'm telling you with all authority, there is no provision of the constitution that says that. I'm telling you. What the law says is that people can approach the courts, you know, to ventilate or to protect their rights. Now, whatever the court now does, unfortunately, depends sometimes on the discretion of some of the judges or how some of the judges apply the law. There is no provision of the Nigerian Constitution or any other law in Nigeria that says an agency like EFCC, ICPC, police cannot summon people or cannot invite or cannot. There is none. So this is why I said people manipulate the courts. Corrupt politicians, they manipulate corrupt judges. Ideally, if this was saying, oh, release Yahaya Bello, you have over-detained him. Oh, you cannot torture him. The law protects all of those rights. But you can't say an institution or agency cannot invite someone or interrogate someone. That is nonsense. Permit me, please. So the point is that there are no legal protection for some of these things. They are simply, I would say, manifestation of abuses. How people abuse or manipulate the law. The law does not guarantee all of these nonsenses. Permit me again.
Yes, you know, we have, you know, documents, and of course, we share the picture, if our producers can post it now, that many agencies of the government, including the AFCC, I think the Nigerian police, I think the customs as well, or immigration. Yeah, immigration service. You have the picture, has declared him wanted. They have sent signals. That is the picture from the immigration service. The Nigerian police has done the same, including the EFCC as well. Now, we learned there is a document from the AGF, the Attorney General of the Federation, who spoke on the matter. And let me just quote a part of that statement. He said, the bizarre drama confronting the EFCC in the course of his efforts to perform his statutory duty has come to my notice. That's the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice talking about Lateef as a matter of very grave concern. And Dr. Lateef said, it is now beyond doubt that the EFCC is given power by the law to invite any person of interest to interact with them in the course of their investigation into any matter regardless of status. Therefore, the least that we can all do when invited is not to put any obstruction in the way of EFCC, of course, and to perform his duty. Let me just skip some part. He said, a situation where public officials who are themselves subject of protection by law enforcement agents will set up a stratagem of obstruction to the civil and commendable effort of the EFCC to perform his duty is, to say at the least, insufferably disquieting. That is being quoting Lateef Fagbemi, the AGF. I state unequivocally that I stand for the rule of law and will promptly call EFCC and indeed any other agency to order when there is indication of any transgression of the fundamental right of any Nigerian by any of the agencies. But I also tenaciously hold the view that institutions of the state should be allowed to function effectively and efficiently. Nigeria has a vibrant judicial system that is capable of protecting everyone who follows the rule of law in seeking protection. I therefore encourage anyone who has been invited by the EFCC or any other agencies to immediately toe the path of decency and civility by honoring such invitation instead of embarking on a temporizing self-help and escapism that can only put our country in bad light before the rest of the world. That statement from the AGF, does it suffice for you, or you think it should have been stronger?
Well, I don't think anything could have been stronger than that. And I don't think there could have been better words or way to say what the AG said. In fact, I read that yesterday and I said to someone that this has really made my day. I said so because that was quite unprecedented. And I'm saying this with authority. I've thought back since 1999 and now. There has never been a time that the Attorney General of the Federation of the country, came out promptly like that in respect of a criminal prosecution of a member of the ruling party. There has never been any. So for me, really, that was quite unprecedented. It's quite commendable. And I think, as I said earlier, I think there is an emerging pattern, of anti-corruption crusade, we are witnessing under this government, and I think it's deliberate. I'm just guessing. And I think the pattern is forming already, that this government seems to have this attitude to anti-corruption, which is quite different from any other thing that we have seen in the past. In the past, we are used to all the noises, even the president and everybody saying noises, but we tend to see action. That's what I've been seeing in the recent days. You see, all of these messages from the police, from the immigration, from the custom, and all of them, they are all unprecedented. And if this should happen or could happen to a Yahaya Bello, a prominent figure in the campaign of the president, and a member of the APC, and I think for me, this is something commendable, and I hope it is not a ruse. I hope it is genuine.
All right, Dr. Lateef, we still have maybe shortly one more topic to go, and I think Evelyn will do that, about the abuse of the Naira. But lastly, from our end on this matter, as a Nigerian person, sometimes you wonder, how can a governor who has been there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you have taken decision, you have been active, your party, your policy have directly impacted your people, a two-time governor, and then you are told to come and answer to some questions, and then you are running from pillar to post. And you understand, it's not only Yahaya Bello that has done this, and it's not only governors. There was an insinuation at some point, or allegation, that the current minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, had to protect the current governor, who was his attorney general, Safubara, from being arrested by men of the EFCC as well. So this is not the first time. But what does that speak to us as a people? Is it that we don't have the culture of accountability, or we don't like probity, or we just think we are lords, that everything we've done, nobody should ask us, and if you are asked, then you begin to run from pillar to post?
Well, it speaks to, I would say, the endemic corrupt practices in our system. It shows how far we have gone in embedding corruption into our system, how corruption, features in all facets of our life, and how, as I said earlier, the irresponsible elite, the privileged one, they are the most, I would say, complicit, in this respect. Yeah, I remember the instance of the current FCT minister. The current governor was his accountant general, you meant,
yes,
and now he shielded him and all of. Yes, this happened. It's a pattern in their playbook. They all do this. But what seems surprising to me or shocking is that Mr. Yahaya Bello at this time is actually playing outside that playbook or out of that playbook. The playbook is that they just go before the EFCC. There's a routine. And to be honest with you, these are actually bailable offenses. These are bailable offenses. So the normal pattern is you go before the EFCC, just like Mr. Fayose did. You present yourself, they interrogate you, they give you administrative bail, they take you to court, the court admit you on bail. So I wonder why Mr. Yahaya Bello is actually, or has taken this part of, this dishonorable part, and now he has further embarrassed himself. But well, he has himself to blame. So it is basically unfortunate, and it is sad that this is who we are.
All right.
So, but then, I don't think God created us like this. So it's just that some people over time, have become so corrupt, and then they also ensure they corrupt the system. Right. So hopefully, the government of the day will sustain this kind of, I would say, approach to fighting corruption by going after people within and without the same government.
Right.
There are corrupt people all over the places, and even around the government.
Yeah.
And I hope this will be applied wholesome against all corrupt persons.
All right.
That otherwise we will just be dancing around the circle.
All right, we have limited time to go, but then would like to touch on another issue, especially one that has been with the EFCC, this crusade against Naira abuse. I'm sure you must have heard the news of at least one person who has been convicted, as a result of his abuse of the Naira. Talk about Idris Okunwaye, popularly known as Bob Risky, and now we have another celebrity, in the web of the EFCC. Now talk about Kudbana, chief priest. Now I'd like you to just shed more light on this Naira abuse. Nigerians feel this is way too much, especially when it comes to spraying of the Naira during parties. They believe it's a culture. This is a Nigerian culture. When you go to parties, definitely you spray Naira, you spray money. This is a thing that we grew up with. But then there are also other means by which you can abuse the Naira. So I'd like you to just touch on that and, expatiate on this issue so that our viewers can be more informed.
All right, thank you so much. And I will say that, talking about culture, yes, culture, values, are practices, that people, are used to, and which is, I would say, pervasive. Yes, the culture of spreading or spraying, as the case may be, is a pervasive culture in Nigeria. It's something that we are all familiar with. Yeah. And I want to believe that everybody, including myself, has had to do that at one point in time. It's whether you step forward in your mosque or even a church to put money in the pew or somewhere or something, we spray money, we do all of those. But is that an enough justification to continue the culture? I think no. And one of the duties of law or reasons for law in every society is to, I would say, regulate or control culture that don't seem to promote, I would say, public good. So if we have, I don't know how many of these videos you have seen. I've seen quite many,
yes.
and I would say they are very bizarre. You know, they are quite disturbing and worrisome. You see how people lavish money, you know, and people, sociologists or criminologists, if you like, they have also linked that culture to the pervasive, you know, I would say culture of ritualists and young people not wanting to get into serious job, young people hoping that they can make it overnight, young people thinking they just want to make money, you know, at all costs. So if we have a culture that is not really promoting public good, I think it is in the place of the law to check that culture or regulate that culture. And I think that is what Section 21, Sub 3 of the 2007 CBN Act, you know, has come to do. And if you ask me, in the US, they have a similar law. The difference is just that they don't have a provision about spraying, because spraying of money is not a pervasive culture in the US, but they do have a provision about mutilation of their money. You know, when you deface currency, when you mutilate currency, when you step on currency. So what Section 21, Sub 3 of the CBN Act does is to criminalize, you know, this culture, if you ask, or if you ask me. So, and I think it's something commendable. And I don't think Idris Okuneye, a.k.a. Bobrisky, is actually the first person to be convicted. There was another popular, you know, actress who was convicted in February. Yes, thank you. She was convicted in February, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, she was lucky. She got what you could call a pat on the wrist because she went away with a fine of 300,000 or thereabout. Well, Bobrisky was not that fortunate. But whether fine or imprisonment, they are both within the provisions of that law, which gives the judge the power to either fine for at least 50,000 naira or 6 months imprisonment or both. So for me, I think it's a commendable, you know, I would say a thing, and I hope they can continue it so that we can at least, you know, stem this culture of, you know, make it quick in our polity and to guide our youth properly.
Yes, we have less than a minute to go. Let me ask for myself and for many persons watching you, the weekend is here. So for enlightenment purpose, what exactly constitutes an abuse of Naira? If you can do that for us in 30 seconds.
Well, that
so that people will not spend their way to jail.
Okay, that provision actually highlights what constitutes abuse. You see, it says spraying, it says mutilating, hawking, stepping on, and all of that. They are provided for under the law. Where I think I don't really agree is that this should not really be a crime that will warrant imprisonment. I think a fine should do. You know, in other countries, they have minor offenses. I think spraying of the money, given the fact that this is actually something that developed from our culture and culture that we are all used to, I think a fine should be fine. A fine or community service should be fine. I don't think jail, you know, should actually, I think jail is too harsh. So a fine of as much money as the court may decide, depending on the kind of spraying. So, but I don't think we should continue the culture of spraying.
Doctor,
I don't think we should continue the culture of abusing the Naira.
If I may quickly just chip in this one. Many persons are saying this is selective. Why are the government, the EFCC, coming after socialites? There have been politicians. There is a serving governor who stood in, a roof of his car and then spraying money, throwing it anyhow. Why coming for, you know, socialites only?
Well, unfortunately, if that is the case, I think that is something for the EFCC to also address so that people will not think some people are being deliberately persecuted. I don't really want to say it in that light, to be honest with you. I think the EFCC has drawn the line. They've said that we came up with this prosecution at so time, and we want to move forward from there. And since that time, if you ask me, since February and now, I don't think any new video has emerged of any Nigerian, you know, spraying money in the manner the EFCC is now prosecuting. I don't think there's any new video from February 2024 and now. I don't think so.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor, for your time this morning. Dr. Misbau Lateef is a legal practitioner, a lecturer, and also a lecturer at the University of Hull, the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you well today. And have yourself a beautiful weekend.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. And I wish you a very beautiful weekend as well. And to all your viewers, thank you for the good job.
All right. That was a very, very insightful conversation with Dr. Misbau Lateef. And I love what he said. So you don't spray your way into
the
jail.
Small one that I want to say.
You know. Well, it will really be a long way for Nigerians to actually adapt. I know human beings, we adapt really quick, but then it will be a long way for Nigerians to adapt. And it's like kind of spoiling business for the entertainers, the musicians who actually make most of their money when people actually come to spray them. But like, you know,
we'll have to find a
doctor says, you know, the fact that it's a culture, if it's pervasive, does not mean that we should continue in it. We should learn the good things and the good culture and evolve as a people. That's where we draw the curtains this morning and this week on Morning Spring. Thank you so much for being a part of our world. We appreciate you. You can catch a recap of this particular edition on our YouTube channel and also of all the editions we've had this week on Western Spring Television, and also connect with us on our Facebook, Instagram and X handles at Western Spring Television. My name is Evelyn Ohiolei. Ensure to stick around for Spring Trends coming right after this broadcast.
All right, Femi Ojo is my name. Be responsible, be accountable. Don't spend your way to jail. Bye.